Hey everyone! Before I jump into today's video, I wanted to give you a brief tour of the garden in its current state to give you an idea of what it currently looks like, because over the next 6 months, it's going to change a lot. Not just what's growing in it, but all the work we will continue to do to it. The garden itself is a 40-ish foot by 40-foot space. Things got a little wonky with the fencing at the end, so I think we lost a few feet somewhere, but that's okay. It's a decent sized home garden, backyard garden, whatever you want to call it, but it's not humongous. My hope is not only to inspire you to grow in whatever sized garden you have, but to also show you that it doesn't happen overnight. Focusing on one small project or task a day adds up over time. It can be overwhelming to start a garden from the ground up. Ask me how I know. But doing one small thing every day will eventually get you where you want to be. Which leads me into today's video as I set up one of my beds for square foot gardening. I am using items I have on hand for today's project. I'm a huge advocate of using what you have. We don't need to go out and spend a ton of money to achieve results that we're looking for. So I've got my tape measure, string, a Sharpie, I've got scissors, a staple gun, and a hammer. The first thing I do is measure from the inside of the garden bed. That's very important. You don't want to measure from the end of the wood to the end of the wood because that will just mess everything up. So you're going to want to measure from the inside of the garden bed. My garden beds are 4 foot by 8 foot. And I mark every 12 inches on the bed itself. I do this around all 4 sides to ensure I am lining my string up correctly. Then I get to work laying out my string, stapling it to the bed, and giving the staple a good hammer so it's secure. I snip the string and move on to the next mark, and I continue the process until I'm done. So I was actually inspired to try this method out this year after watching a YouTube video James Prigioni did on square foot gardening. He had mentioned how it can be overwhelming when trying to plant out an entire raised bed, but with square foot gardening, you're focusing on one square at a time, and that made so much sense to my brain. Like, it's not even funny. This wasn't in the garden plans until I heard him say that, and because of the goals I have, high intensity planning, high intensity planting, succession planting, etc., it made so much sense for me to just try it out and see what happens. One thing that I am really excited about by using this method is not just maximizing the space in my raised beds or maximizing the food production, but it's also going to keep me really organized, and that's going to be so helpful for me because typically I come out here and I just plant all willy-nilly. I don't really have a plan. I try to come up with one, but it doesn't always work out that way. So by using the square foot gardening method, I think it'll be really helpful for me to have a little bit better of a plan of how I'm going to plant out each bed. For example, I know that the tallest things need to go in the back, so the tomatoes are all going to take spots in the back of the bed so they're not shading out the other plants, and then just kind of like taper down from there, like peppers and eggplants, etc., etc. Now, there are guides that you can find online to see like how many plants that you can put per square. For example, like a tomato would take up 1 square, or a pepper would take up 1 square. But there are other things that you can plant multiples in the squares. Like lettuce, you can put 4, radishes, you could do 16, beets, you could do 9. They said spinach, you could do 9 plants as well. And those are actually the things that I'm going to be planting today. It's April 13th, so it's a little bit early in the season, but I've been looking at the forecast and the day temperatures look really good. The nighttime temperatures are in like the 40s and 50s. There are some nights that have high 30s, but I'm not too worried about it. If I feel like there's danger of a frost, I can always cover them up. I do have some greenhouse plastic that I can put over the bed if I need to. But I just kind of wanted to show you what I am planting and give you an idea in 4 of these squares that I decided to plant in today, what square foot gardening actually looks like. So I'm going to be planting 3 different types of lettuces. I'm going to be planting crisp mint, butter crunch, and tendita. I'm going to direct sow all of these things. This is kind of an experiment for me. In previous years I've started these inside, but I only have so much space on my shelving unit, so I'm gonna see how this works out for me. I'm also going to be planting out spinach. Also, I have to say, I love Pine Tree Garden Seeds. They are a wonderful company for the home gardener. They have a wide variety of seeds. They have great customer service, and their seeds are wonderful. I have had really great luck with them. Plus, it's a Maine company, and I absolutely love supporting them. And then I'm going to experiment by planting out some beets. I know that they need a long time to grow, so I wanted to see if planting them in mid-April would get me, you know, the size of the beet that I'm looking for. I'm going to be doing a golden beet, a ruby queen because my son requested a very dark red beet, and I'm also going to be doing chioga. I'm not really sure if that's how you say it, but I'm going to be trying that as well. So let's get planting. So I completely forgot my radishes inside. I'm also going to be planting radishes today. Now I'm just going to show you what I'm planting in these 4 squares, but I have other squares marked around the garden where I'd like to add more spinach, and I'm going to be adding beets to other garden beds. But in these ones, in these garden beds, in these squares, I am going to be planting radishes, 2 squares of spinach because we love spinach in this house, and I'm also going to be planting lettuce. But in the other squares, I will plant some beets, some more spinach, maybe some more lettuce, maybe more radishes. We're not like a huge radish family, but I heard they were really good roasted, and I wanted to try that. I'm sorry, it's super sunny out right now. It's like 70 something degrees in Maine, which is very unusual in April. So it's hot, it's sunny, and I'm gonna get to work. So in this bed, I'm going to do 16 radishes. I'll bring you down to show you. Hopefully you can see. I'm not going to be super particular on the spacing of what I'm direct sowing. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. If you want to be more precise, that's up to you. I'm just going to go for it and plant and do like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. And then I'll just put the little seeds in. So these seeds are the Pine Tree Garden Seeds Pine Tree Mix. I don't really remember what they look like, but we will find out. And then I'm going to plant the other half of it with Pine Tree Garden Seeds Radish Watermelon. And I had come out here earlier and pre-watered these squares just to moisten them up a little bit. Just cover the babies up. Alright. Radishes are done. On to spinach. So I'm going to use this square and this square up here for the spinach. I'm growing Bloomsdale long standing spinach. And from what I gathered online, you can do 9 spinach plants per square. We shall see. This is all an experiment for me. So if I don't like how the plants turn out, next year I'll try something different. I do high intensity planting anyways. I think it's really great for pest management, putting a bunch of different things in each bed. I think it's also great for weed management. So this is going to be helpful. And also it'll be helpful for succession planting as well. So when something like the radishes, for example, are done, I can plant something else in the square. I usually forget where I've direct sowed things and maybe sometimes direct sow something else over them before the plant comes up, or I don't remember where they are, so I'm not like checking to see if it's coming up, and if it's not, like I'm not able to replant it. So that's been an issue for me, and I'm trying to maximize the space and output of my harvests. I want to be able to grow from spring into late fall and get as much as I possibly can. We had a massive windstorm in December. So there are, excuse me, there are like twigs and pine needles all throughout my garden beds. But as you'll probably notice, I marked the squares that I'm using today with some twigs, so I remember that I planted something in here. And in this last square, I am going to be planting lettuce. I think I want to do the butter crunch, the butter crunch and the crisp mint in this bed, excuse me, in this square, and then I will do the tendita lettuce in another square in another one of my beds. So my notes say that you can plant 4 lettuces in each square, so I will kind of mark it in the corners here. I'm going to plant a few seeds in each hole. I just realized that the video had cut off and I wasn't actually able to finish what I was talking about. So it's evening now, it's later in the day, but I was out here on my lunch break when I was taking that video, and I was able to finish direct sowing the seeds that I had discussed with you. They're all cool weather crops, so they're able to go in now. Like I said earlier, it's a little early in the season. I'm just experimenting and seeing what happens and seeing what works. If there's a danger of a frost coming in, then I will absolutely cover the seedlings if they come up. If the nights are cool, it might just take a little bit extra time for them to germinate, but again, this is all an experiment. And I do understand that how I'm planning out and planting my garden isn't necessarily how you would do it, but I'm just hoping you can get inspired by what I'm doing and maybe get some ideas for your garden to maximize your space. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today. Thanks.